For the most part, during class, I'm going to keep you muted, but you're always welcome anytime to unmute yourself and speak out, speak up. I welcome you to do that. But just to kind of keep control over the things that none of us have control over, you don't know who might run through the room at the dog, the kid, just kind of helps us keep the noise in check. So you will pretty much be muted until you're not, but just feel free to unmute and speak up if you wish. The video and mute buttons are in your lower left corner of the Zoom window. So I welcome you to either type things in the chat, as some of you have been doing, or speak up. That is fine. There's the chat. And go ahead and let's experiment. Some of you have been great about chatting already, but tell me why you want to get your license. Go ahead and tell me in the chat. Just a little short abbreviated version of why you want to do this to begin with. I hear ya. Kids are older, time to do something for yourself. That's a good one. There's Brian. He showed up on video. Congratulations again, buddy. Oh, good. Kevin, you made it. Good. Flip houses for additional income. That's great. That would be kind of doing your own investment. And just another testable thing is, do you need the license to do your own real estate? You do not. However, there are certainly huge benefits in having your license, even if all you ever do is your own real estate business, like your own buying and selling of property, because the access to the MLS, right? The multiple listing service, probably one of the big reasons you're doing this. And then also, while you're doing your own real estate, you might run into people that want you to help them with theirs. So why not double duty it, right? Plenty of benefits to the business. Yep. Any kind of motivational or biographies about rich folks that I've ever read, they either got rich because of real estate or got into real estate once they got rich, right? Real estate was in the portfolio, in the game plan in some way or another. Good to know. A lot of them, sometimes I see people say, I had a great agent and she did such a good job that I felt like I want to do that too for people. And then on the negative side, some people say I didn't have a great agent at all. They were so lousy that I thought, well, if they can do it, certainly I can do it. I will tell you this, if the reason you got into this was because of a bad agent experience, don't think that just because that agent was a knucklehead, that means it's easy to get the license. You're going to have to do the work. So I can't impress upon you that enough. Respect. I see that. Passion for real estate. Own several properties. I gotcha. We'll talk a little bit about some commercial and investment related things in this course. There are some other resources you can take once you get the license too. What is your biggest concern about the course? By the way, in the chat, you can choose to say something that everybody sees, but you can also just direct message me. And it's fine to do that at any time. If you're embarrassed, if you want to ask a question but not let everybody see the question, I won't call you out. I'll read your question and I'll say, hey, I've got a question here. Here it is. I won't say that it was from you. So you are free, feel comfortable to ask anything. You truly don't have to worry about being embarrassed about a question. I won't tell everybody what you say. A very common concern. Here are the two most common answers to the biggest concerns. Two biggest concerns are math and test taking. Test taking phobia, or people worried about testing. I get it. It's weird to kind of have everybody in the world, everybody is so different, and we're putting them all through this one little testing funnel. So I do my very best to help you understand what you need to do to apply this content to a test taking format. So, test taking anxiety, math phobia. I I was terrible at math in high school and even college. Tried pre-calculus a couple of times, if you know what I mean. But somehow, fast forward like 10 years, I have a younger brother who's 13 years younger than me. Somewhere in that 10-year period when I got out of college, I was working, I think I was like maybe 28, 29. He was in high school and he hit chemistry and like algebra. Somehow I understood it and I was able to actually tutor him and help him through it. I think it was just that big brother protective instinct that kicked in. I didn't care about it as much when it was just me, but when it was him, maybe I cared more enough to learn it so I could teach it to him. So I know how to teach people that are having trouble learning something because I was that person and so was he. And I figured out how to teach it to him. And so I like looking for that little light bulb moment, that little um, thing to compare the topic to makes you just, oh, yeah. Oh, well, now that you say it that way, I get it. That's what I'm looking for. And so I want you to reach out to me if you're struggling with any particular topic. Someone just one of the last classes I taught, and we haven't gotten there yet, but we will in the next week or two. She said, I just don't understand estates in real estate. What is this? What is it? We had covered it, but she just really was having trouble understanding what it really just meant. And I think I found a way to kind of draw a reference line to something else. And I'll mention that when we get to it. Maybe it'll help you. Yeah, memorization of the laws. The other thing is a lot of content in a short time. We have a relatively little bit of time together. And so it's a lot of material to cover in that little bit of a short time. So I get it and I hear you. Yes, sir. Not at all. Let's see. What is next Monday? Is that a holiday? Let me think. I think that might be true. Let me double check at the break. I think you're right. I do remember talking about that when we planned the class. So let me double check and see where we end up landing on that. I don't know any holidays, by the way. In real estate, if the phone rings and they want to look at a house, you go show the house, right? So I don't. I know the big ones, but I don't stay on top of any of the rest of them. So I always have to ask. All right. At the bottom of your Zoom window, there's let me find my cursor. Sometimes that little sucker disappears. At the bottom of your Zoom window, there's a reactions button. If you want to use that, you can do like a thumbs up. You could, um, where did it go? Where's mine? Okay, there we go. And so that's just a resource available. You can kind of see my window. You can make hearts and thumbs ups and this and that and the other. So just another way to interact. We will have the room open for you as of 5. We will start promptly at 5:30. A lot of you went ahead and signed on right off the bat. I do appreciate that because it's much nicer to say, okay, let's get started. And I don't have to keep letting people in from the waiting room when we should be covering material. So if at all possible, please try to go ahead and sign on between 5 and 5:25, and you're welcome to immediately turn your video off and go about your business. I don't need any interaction from you. I would just like for you to be there so it's just ready to go if you can. Sometimes you have to get home from work, and I know that drive sometimes presents a problem. And then we have breaks every 50 minutes. So in the next 7 minutes, about 6:30, we're going to have a break um, and start with that process. So about 10 minutes every hour, 10 minutes of every hour is a break time, and we'll end at 9:30. But I'm willing to talk to you if you have questions at the end of class that you didn't want to bring up during class. I won't shut this room down right at 9:30. If you have something to talk about, I'm happy to talk. We talked about the chat window, and I think maybe by now you appreciate that this is the case. This is a college level class. In terms of the amount of material we have to cover, you need to study outside of our time together. Some say as much as an hour or two per hour of class time. You're going to need to start thinking, where can I steal time from, right? Because you can't spend it on what you've been spending it on, whether that means spouses, kids, eating, work, study, Netflix, sleep, somewhere something's got to give. And so I would recommend that you do a little huddle up of those people who have to love you and who you love and say, look, guys, I need your help. I need you to help me. Don't rely on me as much as you have been, right? I can't be there for you as much as I usually am, and I'll be back. But in the meantime, you've got to give me space. I need some time. Sometimes you got to take that time. Maybe instead of coming right back from the grocery store, you hang out another 30 minutes and an hour sitting in the car studying. And they think you're at the store, so they don't bother you. Wherever you can get it. Sometimes it needs to be first thing in the mornings, maybe late last thing at night. Maybe instead of your typical lunch routine from your real regular job, you're cracking the book and you're studying while you're eating. Look for that time now, because if you take the next 3 weeks before you figure out when to fit studying in, and you haven't been yet, you will be 3 weeks in a hole that you probably can't dig out of. I'm just being straight with you. It's going to be impossible to catch up. This is moving fast, and it's going to be a struggle to just stay on top of it. So certainly don't fall behind. It's worth it though. I'm trying to scare you. It's real, but the upside potential is huge, right? We'll talk about the money here in a minute. You do have a maximum allowable absence of 16 hours as per the Real Estate Commission. However, you know what that is? That's 4 4-hour classes. And that sounds like a lot right now, but don't use it if you absolutely can help it. Because what'll happen is you use it maybe kind of, yeah, let me just take a break. I don't really feel like looking at his face tonight. I can learn this stuff on my own on this particular night. And then you've squandered like 12, 14, 15 hours of your time. And then that last couple of weeks, something legitimate happens that you really do have to miss, maybe an entire class. You don't have 4 hours in your bank, so to speak. You're not getting more. Doesn't matter what the story is. The commission is strict about it. We have to follow the rules the commission sets because we could get in trouble. Therefore, you don't get 16 hours and then maybe another hour if you're really nice about it. It's it. So save them. Be sparing with them. Try not to use them at all. Because by the way, if you're not here, you're not learning this stuff. Sometimes you read it and it doesn't make any sense. Like when you get to estates that we just talked about a minute ago, I promise you will be a little confused. But when you get here into class and I can talk you through it, it makes more sense. It's more clear. So just that alone is a reason to show up. You need some good old-fashioned supplies, pens, papers, a dumb calculator, I like to call it, meaning one that is not your phone, at least for the final exam. Doesn't matter what you have during the course. You can use your phone calculator during the course, but for the final, you're going to have a regular non-phone, non-cheatable calculator, right? Highlighters are good. Post-it notes are good. That sort of thing for taking notes. Here's how to set yourself up for success. Come to class having already read the chapter. That'd be good, because then you can focus on the stuff that's the most important out of that chapter. So read the units before the class, and whenever you're reading the textbook, make sure you have that syllabus open alongside. Here we go. Right there. Make sure that you have the syllabus open too. That way, I would say read the section in the syllabus first and then read the textbook, because that will kind of program your brain of what to look for. Then you'll know that when you hit immobility in the textbook, circle it, highlight it. Indestructibility, uniqueness, scarcity. Those are words from the syllabus. Therefore, pay particular attention to them out of the textbook. And then just that whole idea. You can also see here the level 1, 2s, and 3s are mentioned. So anytime you're reading the textbook, have that syllabus nearby. Take notes. Maybe even like reference page numbers, like where's modular housing in the textbook? Textbook, page 37. I just made that up. I don't know. So, and then another thing is, remember I told you that the final exam and the PSI are both divided into 2 sections. They're not halves because the national portion is bigger, but there's a national portion and a state portion of the exam. The state portion of the exam is specific to North Carolina. How do we know what's going to be on the state portion of the exam? It's going to say North Carolina in the syllabus. Look for those parts in the syllabus that reference North Carolina specifics like this. Joint tenancy. Anytime they mention North Carolina, there's one, there's another one, and they're all over the place. There's the North Carolina Timeshare Act. I would suggest that you print this syllabus off, pick a color out of like 4 different highlighter colors, pick like yellow or green or pink, and go through, and that's your color for North Carolina. Anytime you see the NC in this syllabus, highlight it. Then you can flip back through later and see them, right, just by flipping through the pages. With that said, I see 6:30. Let's go ahead and take our first break, and I'll see you in 10 minutes. welcome back. Okay. One second. There we go. That's what we want. Okay, how to do this thing before class. When you come to class, best practice, know what we're going to be talking about, right? Cover it in the book first, if at all possible. Read those units before. There are let's look at a typical chapter. Any given chapter going to look something like this. Here we go. Okay. You've got some key terms, some chapters more terms than others. So key terms and the learning objectives. And then along the way, let's see if this chapter has one. Yep, there it is. You've got that little North Carolina symbol. Because that means, see that little North Carolina state outline? That means that material is specific to North Carolina. So be looking out for those. Maybe take that same highlighter that you used to highlight North Carolina related things in the syllabus and mark this too. What else is in this chapter? At the end, because this was a particularly short chapter, a summary of important points. I would say anytime you get to a new one, read that first. Skip ahead. Read the key terms, read the objective, but then ignore the chapter, skip to the summary of important points, then go back and read the chapter, right? And all of that is after you've read the syllabus for that section too, right? That's going to, again, program your brain to be looking for those specific words and items. Those are two separate resources. Somebody had a good question. The cost for the ebook include the paper copy? No, you would have to buy either or, right? Or both, but they both cost a certain amount. I think they're both somewhere around $50, 50, 55, $60. And then at the end are some review questions. These review questions, basically multiple choice test questions. Are they like what you are going to see on the PSI or even on the final exam? No, not necessarily. But what they do accomplish is test you on the content from the chapter. So you should do them. But sometimes, though, you might see one that maybe specifically I've mentioned is not something covered on the PSI. And if we're not covering it on the PSI, we're not going to take time in the class. But the textbook doesn't know that. There are a couple of things in this textbook that you don't need to worry about. I'm going to try to let you know of those along the way. But that's sort of the outline of what a chapter is. Read the syllabus first for a given chapter. Read the key terms first, next. The objective, both of those are in the beginning. Flip to the back and read the summary. And then read the chapter and take the quiz for that chapter. That'd be kind of best practice. See, there's chapter 4, and notably more key terms in 4, because that's a big one. Remember, I think that was like 4.5 hours of time in class. They have little test tips along the way. So get familiar with this book, this textbook. If you know what it has to offer, you can make the absolute most of it. A couple other things, since we're looking at this book, go to the back, the complete back, where the appendices are. Any given textbook, don't know how long you might have been out of school, but they all have things like this. And the first appendix we get to back here is exam preparation tips. So that's good, right? Read through that at some point, sooner than later. If we keep on going, the next appendix, Appendix B, is about math. Where'd it go? There we go. Real estate math for you mathophobes out there like me. Read this soon, right? Maybe you go through this. Maybe it won't make any sense until you've read the chapter for it, but at least get sort of an advance notice of what's coming. Now, some basic math, sort of remedial, so to speak, what sort of review in order to prepare you for this math. I'm going to give you something. I think I'm going to make a video just kind of covering what are the basics you need to know to be able to do this math. And what that essentially is, looks like this. I'll do an official, a little bit longer form video for it. But let me give you a nutshell version here. What are you going to need to know for the math? How to convert to decimal to percentage, from decimal to percentage. So moving that decimal place. For instance, if you see the calculator there, 90%, 90 and the percent sign like this is the same as this number, 0.9, the number 0.9. Hitting that percent sign moves the decimal over 2 spaces. Why did I just do that? Because on any number that you have in the whole world ever, any whole number like this, there's an understood 0.0 after it. Any number out there. Pick a number. You could do a 0.0 after that number, and it's the same number value. So what happens when you hit the percent sign? You punch in 87 and the percent sign. What's going to happen is this decimal place here is going to go over. It's going to hop over to the left 2 spaces and become 0.87. Let's see if I'm right. 87% sign, there it is. That's important because 87%, you can't just multiply 87% times the purchase price of $100,000. That's $8.7 million. But what I really wanted to know was what is 87% of 100,000? And if you hit that percent sign, which turns it into this 0.87 decimal, 87,000 is a lot different than 8.7 million, right? That's why it's important. So that's one super basic thing you need to remember about what math you need to know here, converting decimal and percents. Another one is the basic algebra equation. Some of you just tuned out because I said the word algebra. Don't worry about that word. You do it every day in your head. Because what if I told you this? What if I said X, let's not do X. What if I said the letter A times 3 equals 6? And then I asked you what number is represented by the letter A. Every one of you just thought 2 because you know 2 times 3 is 6. That's algebra. And that's about the extent of the algebra that we do here. If we take a thing like this and rewrite it into this little, what I call T formula, or some people call it a circle formula, that the two things we're multiplying together go on the bottom, and the one thing that they equal goes on the top. Why does that matter? Because if you know any two of a given thing, in this case we do, we know the 3 and the 6, and you plug them into the right place on this thing, it tells you what to do to get the last thing. Because this item on top, the 6, is divided by one of the items on the bottom to equal the other thing on the bottom. 6 divided by 3 is 2. And that basic T formula, circle formula kind of structure is useful because calculating things like annual property tax that you have to pay, what's your tax bill every month or every year for real estate that you own, it's a algebra problem. It's an algebra equation. It looks like this. It's annual taxes. Your annual tax bill is just your tax rate. Don't worry about writing this down. We'll get to it eventually. Times the tax value. whatever the tax value of your property is, times the tax rate for the city and county you're in, gives you your annual tax bill. How many dollars of tax you have to pay every year. And there it is. That's all we did. So that level of math applies to pretty much everything. Being able to go backwards and forwards with that. Basic algebra and converting decimals to percents. You'll go pretty much as far as you need to with math in this course by essentially applying these things. Okay. And then bring me your questions. Be proactive. Remember, don't be passive. This is not a Netflix show. This is an interactive experience. You need to make this effective for yourself. Talk to me. Tell me things. Reach out. I don't mind. That's what I'm here for. Between class is fine. Text me, email me, post it to Notion. What is that? What do I mean by Notion? Let me show you what that is. I've set this up, and if you haven't already found it, I sent you an email. I think Libby, I still need to send you this. But I sent you, and some of you've done it up here. I can see what do we have? About 4 of you have done it. So you're going to want to accept that invitation to Notion. That way you'll be able to come to this page. And as you see, I can't zoom in. It won't let me do the little pinch to zoom here for this, but the top is a ongoing chat discussion. So I'll be typing things, telling you things, like I might say, hey, I added a resource down below. Make sure you go look for it. And you can type in reply. And so that's one of the things I'll ask you first, and several of you have done it. When you receive it and accept it, go ahead and give me a comment. Let me know that you're in and that you're set up. So I've got resources in here already from a previous class that I've taught. Number 1, classroom rules, some basics. And then basically this couple more thoughts is from that email I sent yesterday afternoon. And I think I sent it to everybody who joined today as well. So that's there. The required text that you need. I need to update this print version of the textbook, but the e-version is correct. And then like the course syllabus, just referencing that it exists. I'm not giving you it from here, but there's also something called license law and commission rules that we'll talk about. There's also something called the Relink book, Real Estate Licensing in North Carolina, and then some practice exams. So that's the text, the resources that are available that we'll get to along the way. And then a little further down, well, here's the Zoom link. I just parked it here, so you'll always have it handy if you don't. We're going to use the same one the whole way. I will not send you every day of class. You won't be getting an email from me saying, join us for class tonight. You've got to manage that on your own. Keep your Zoom link handy. Show up, right? I'm not going to baby you. You're adults. This is adult education. How to study for this course is a nice little resource for you to take a look at on your own time. And then keep on going down Notion. The study schedule, I think I've linked it to the right thing, maybe. Yeah. That's this. Oh, it didn't show up on for you, but it showed up for me. But it will. When you click that link, you'll see the same thing I showed you earlier, basically a rough idea of when we'll get to which items. We're going in order of the syllabus. So mentioning the announcement, the attendance policy. There's a link to the Google Drive. If you can get to Notion, you can get to the Google Drive, because just scroll down and click on that link, and I will show you it this time. It takes you right over to here. There's the Google Drive that we looked at a little bit ago. And I'll spend some more time walking you through that here in a second. It won't let me zoom in. Sorry. Let's see. On down, some of this stuff are answers to questions the last class asked me. And since they are questions you'll probably have along the way, I left them in here. So if you want to read ahead, look ahead, that's fine. I did a little audio. Sometimes somebody will ask me something and I'll just have a minute. So I was sitting in the parking lot waiting for my wife at the grocery store, and I just turned on the recorder on my phone and I talked it, right? I just made an audio, and there it is. I saved it to an Evernote and parked it right here so you can hear me narrating my answer to kind of a recap of what this thing called agency is. When we get to chapter 7 and 8, we'll learn that agency has to do with our relationship with our client. What do they have? What can they rely on us for? What do we owe them? That's what agency is. Then you'll sometimes see a video. So I've got a video answer to how to calculate annual real estate tax. And it's parked at my YouTube channel, which, by the way, I'll put in the chat. And I call that channel Impact Broker Coach. I went ahead and got a little basic domain, like a custom domain, so that you don't have to go to YouTube and search for it. You can just plug this in and it'll take you to the channel, Impact Broker Coach. And it's got all of the sessions from last time that I taught it. And then also it's older content than that too. You can see what's going on. This video is playing as we speak. And I basically am narrating myself writing a tax calculation problem. So it's that. Let me show it. That audio off. When you go to the channel and you scroll on down, you'll see some stuff from last time. I'm going to do better about naming it this time. It'll be very clear that it's this session versus last. And at the very bottom, the oldest content that I have on here are the ones with these colored backgrounds, and they are all the math problems. These are all walkthrough narrations of me doing these particular types of math problems. So gives you a way to just to pause it and go backwards. Don't forget, when you're on YouTube and you go to the videos heading, you'll see some stuff, but if you go to the live heading, you'll see other stuff. The stuff that was a live stream. And oh, look, there's one right now. What we're doing right now is that live stream right here, right now. And then the other ones that I've done along the way. So that's a resource for you. Back to Notion. I think I've hit everything I wanted to on here. There's my contact info at the bottom. And then there's a bunch of, sometimes last time people asked me questions and I just made some sort of answer, and that's what these are if you want to look at them. Now, back to the PowerPoint. So review the units that are covered, do any homework assignments that I might give you, study a lot, and don't forget, form study groups. Feel free in Notion to reach out to each other, right? You can type in that discussion box, in that chat box, and say, hey, anybody want to, I don't know where you're located, go ahead and tell me in the chat. What cities are you in? Tell me what cities you're sitting in right now. That's always interesting. That changed over these last couple of years. Before 2020, real estate schools were very regional. But now I've got people from other states who want to learn and get a North Carolina real estate license. So at the very least, it's across the state. But sometimes they are kind of living in their other house in Georgia or something. Okay, everybody's pretty local. So that might be great to meet at a coffee shop. Some of you feel like you get something out of that one-on-one kind of time or group in-person time. So form those groups. And don't forget, you can have your own free Zoom account and have an up to 40-minute time frame, right? In a 40-minute session, and then you could just re-up if you wanted to, like call back and start a new one if you wanted to, and do your own free Zoom that way. We will give you a midterm exam. That midterm is not, well, it's graded just to see how you did, but it doesn't count toward your success in this course. It's not something that matters as far as do you pass the course or not. It's just an assessment, really. So there's a midterm, and then after that midterm, maybe another couple of weeks after the midterm, I'll go ahead, maybe right around that time, and send you 5 practice exams. And those practice exams, all of those things, midterm included, they are all PDFs that you could take them online if you wanted to, and just read them on your screen, or you could print them off and take them that way. The final exam, as well as, well, yeah, doesn't matter. Final exam and the PSI exam, all of those will be done on your computer. They will not be like pen and paper. Even on the PSI exam, you could choose to go there to their testing location in Charlotte. It's off of Tyvola Road. And by the way, PSI tests people in all kinds of industries. If you ever want to get your commercial drone license to fly a drone for commercial use, you're going to need to take a drone Part 107 class, and you would get tested for that at the same location, the PSI place. But PSI, at least for the real estate course, also allows you to test from your home computer, just like we're doing this now. So there are options, but no matter what the option, it's taking a test on your computer screen where you read the question and you answer it on the computer. You can skip a question and come back to it. At the end, you hit submit and it tells you whether you passed or not. So the final exam is going to be given in that same way. But these practice exams and the midterm are all PDFs. They're not going to be given the same way the final will be. You can literally just print them off and use them. And then we also find that it's useful to apply this content to real world scenarios. So I'm going to give you the latest offer to purchase that we use, the standard form, as well as the latest listing agreement form that we use, so that you can see what we're talking about and compare the two. So you'll fill those out along the way when it's time. Here's our book we use now. We talked about it already. I'm not going to talk about it again, but look out for this little symbol in that book. That's the North Carolina specific stuff. So make a particular note about it. And then where else is North Carolina stuff? I already told you that. I spoiled my surprise in the syllabus. Look for that North Carolina related content in your syllabus. I would suggest marking it along the way. And the back of the book has those appendix that we were talking about before break. It also has a glossary and an index. I think those are underappreciated. People don't appreciate the glossary and the index, but they're great for finding something real quick. If you're studying and you just can't remember the meaning of a word, look it up in the glossary. It's the dictionary of these terms. So that's what it's there for. The Appendix C in the book is the license law and commission rules. There it is. License law and commission rules. That's a PDF that the Real Estate Commission provides. I'm going to send it to you. It's already in the Google Classroom. There are 3 PDFs that have these laws and rules in them. And let me sum it up this way. Let's keep it simple. When you see something referred to as license law, North Carolina license law, that's literally a law on the books. You could even type in Google GS for NCGS, North Carolina General Statute. If you look up something in the 93A section, that's a North Carolina real estate license law item. So anytime in the syllabus, they will make mention of license laws and commission rules. If you see something labeled 93A, it's a license law. It's a law. You might also see something called a North Carolina real estate commission rule. Rules and laws is what you're learning here. Those are called 58 something. You don't need to know the numbers. You won't be tested on what the numbers are. Like, I won't say you have to deposit trust money within 3 days. Which number is it? 93A-6. No, you will never be tested that way. You'll need to know the content of the rule, but not what that rule is so much. Well, these license laws and commission rules are their own PDFs that I've provided in the Google Drive. The Real Estate Commission also created another document. It's called the License Law and Commission Rules Comments section. It is also a PDF. You definitely have that one. That came in the first email we sent you. All three of these are in the Google Drive. But I would say for your study purposes, this comments section contains the license law and the commission rules in it. Now, the Real Estate Commission has told us educators, don't tell students to only study the comments section. They need to also look at the license law and commission rules too. So do that. But I'm going to say lead with the comments section because this is about 23 pages of better written, easier to understand language of what these rules and laws are. And I'm also going to say read about 5 pages a week. And when you finish, start over. You need to have read this comments section 4, 5, 6 times or more by the time we're done. If you can master this comments section on the state portion of the exam, you're good for 10 out of the 40 questions, and probably even more than that. Because of the remaining 30, some of that kind of has to do with this stuff too. So it's going to take you a long way towards preparing for success on the state portion of the exam. Comments section is where to start. In that, let me show it to you. In that comment section, it references those laws and rules, and here's what it looks like. Here's the PDF. You open it up, you'll see this. And looky there, requirement for a license, General Statute 93A-1 and 2. So again, you could Google search GS 93A1 and it's going to show you the same thing, straight out of the license law. So you could say 93A-1, and then you could go over to the actual license law PDF that you have and find it and see the attorney legal language version that is a little harder to read. And they're all over the place. 93A-2, there's a 2A1. I want to show you something again, something else a little further. Let's see, where'd it go? So you've got license law, but you also are going to have references to the commission rules. One will show up for me. There we go. In this case, we're talking about discriminatory practices and how that's a violation of real estate law, considered improper conduct. We don't need to, we're not allowed, we're not supposed to discriminate on the basis of some protected classes. Everybody should have fair opportunity for real estate purchases, right? Renting. And that's what this is talking about. It's a license law because you can see here they mentioned 93A something, and it's a commission rule because it's A1601. Rule A, you might also see 58 in some places. Down here, we're not allowed to practice law as brokers. As brokers in real estate, we can't be lawyers unless we're actually lawyers. But the commission says you better not be practicing law. What is practicing law? It's writing things. We can't create documents. That's called drafting a legal document. If we were to write an amendment for a contract or something from scratch, that would be illegal because it's right here in the license law in 2 different places. It's also in the commission rules section. So that's what that's talking about. That is the comments section. I think there's about 4. This is divided into about 4 or 5 sections. There's the intro. There's the stuff about willful and negligent misrepresentation. There's trust account related stuff. We have to keep other people's money sometimes, and we're not allowed to put their money in with our money. We can't put somebody's earnest money deposit into our firm's operating account. That would be called commingling. That's a testable item, testable word. Commingling is illegal. Mingling the client's money with our own is not good. And so that falls under the trust account section of rules that we'll be learning. And then timeshares. That's also mentioned in this content as well. So this comment section pulls from the license law and the commission rules. It has just about everything you need to know that the commission says you need to know, except 10 things. So if you know everything mentioned in this comment section, plus those other 10 things, you're pretty well prepared for those 10 questions on the state portion of the exam. What are those other smaller 10 things that you need to know in addition to the comment section? I'll show you. If we go over to our syllabus, scroll all the way down to section 21, which is the license law and commission rule section right there. Well, oh wow. There we go. Oh my goodness. Every time I zoom, it knocks me out. Okay. There we are. Section 21 in your syllabus. I would say read this before tomorrow or at least before next week. This weekend, at the very least, read this section of the syllabus. Just read it. Just look through it. Get those words in your brain. This one is an example of a section in the syllabus that has a lot of words and no definitions. I mean, there is this part here that pretty much has what the activities that require a license are, so there's not much to add right here. You could maybe reference the page number from your textbook, but that's not some of the stuff in the syllabus they give you. But other things like attorney in fact, attorney at law, trustee, those are places where you could write some elaboration. Composition of the real estate commission. Who is on it? When you hear the term real estate commission, it's kind of two things. It's the entire North Carolina Real Estate Commission as a whole, which includes all the employees that carry out the directives of the board. The commission board is composed of 9 people. So who's on the real estate commission? There's 9 people on the real estate commission board. 9. That's a testable item. And oh, there it is. So that you could write that in right here where it says composition. You could put in 9 people. And you could also add that they are appointed. They're not voted in. To be on the real estate commission, you get appointed by someone. Who are you appointed by? It depends. The governor of North Carolina appoints 7 out of the 9. The North Carolina House of Representatives appoints 1 of them, and the North Carolina Senate appoints the other 1 out of the 9. Appoint, that means the real estate commission, as far as political leanings, is going to depend upon who was in office appointing them at the time. They're probably going to appoint somebody who believes similarly, right? Not that that matters that much, because the real estate commission is pretty much focused on what are the laws and rules and did you break them. So the politics of it, not that important probably, but that's the important distinction. They are appointed, they're not voted in. We don't, as citizens of North Carolina, we don't vote on that. We don't vote on who gets on the real estate commission. So I'd write in those things in here. I've been trying to zoom, and it's been knocking me out a million times. You'd think I'd learn. There we go. Oh, okay. So my question was, from the comment section that you're going to read, there are 10 things not included there that you do need to know. What are they? They're right here in section C in the syllabus. And look, it tells you this section is not discussed in the license law commission rules, but it must be covered. They are the most basic ones. They're the easiest ones to know. And we'll cover those tonight, so I won't steal my own thunder. Now, where did we leave off? Oh, the back of the textbook. So there's appendices, there's math review, there's exam prep, there's the license law commission rule. Don't look at it. Section C, Appendix C in your actual book has the license law commission rules in it, but I don't want you to use it because it's old. Because this book does not get reprinted every year, but the license law and commission rules might. Therefore, use the PDF I gave you. Don't use the one in the back of your textbook. It might be outdated, even a little bit. Just use the PDF, but it's there. Just ignore it. The one in the back of the book. And then it takes up a lot too. Appendix D is about measuring houses, and we do cover that. I give you a PDF on it, but they have included that content in the back of your book as well. There we go. Yeah, it's called Residential Square Footage Guidelines. Right here, Appendix D. It's a nice, cute little yellow book that I'll give you a PDF of. And it's got the basics on how we are expected to measure. As brokers, guess what? We have to disclose material facts to the whole world. If we know the roof leaks, even though we're working for that seller trying to sell the house, we can't keep that a secret. We do not owe that to our seller. We owe a lot to our seller. We have to keep their secrets. We can't tell the world why our seller is selling, that they're really motivated or that they are desperate to take any price at all. We certainly can't tell the world that. But if we know the roof leaks, we do have to tell the world that. We have to disclose. That's called a material fact. That the roof leaks, that there's excessive mold, that it's down the street from a landfill here in Concord, that it's got air traffic, like really loud air traffic overhead near Charlotte Douglas or Concord Regional Airport. Things like that about the property, related to the property, are material facts. And we as brokers have to tell everybody, not just to protect that information. Well, one of those things that we have to disclose about the property, listen to me, is not the square footage. How big is a house? How many square feet? The Real Estate Commission says we do not have to tell that. We are not required to disclose the square footage. Square feet is not a material fact that is required by the Real Estate Commission. How many other ways can I say that? Are you listening? So if the test question says, does the Real Estate Commission require the disclosure of square feet as a material fact? The answer is no. And you're like, but I see it everywhere. Zillow, Realtor.com, every place I look at listings, they show square feet. Well, it's there, not because the Real Estate Commission says it's got to be there, but because the MLS requires it. When we post listings in the multiple listing service, the MLS, we have to put in square feet because they say so. All the Real Estate Commission cares about is that if you choose to give square footage, it better be accurate. And that's what this entire book is about. This entire PDF about measuring is about how to measure properly and accurately. Because guess what? If we have to disclose it accurately, then we better do it properly. And the commission says, well, think about it though. If we were just stranded on a desert island with a bunch of houses on it, I know that makes no sense, and we decided to start a real estate business, and we said, what are we going to require of ourselves? What laws and rules? And what are we going to do about square feet? How do we measure this hut? It's a 5-bedroom hut with 2 bathrooms and a garage, and it's 2 stories. But how do we measure it? Do we just tell people that once you go inside, the living room is 9 by 10 and the bedrooms are 12 by 11? Or do we measure the outside dimensions? That's a big difference. If you're measuring around the outside of the house, you've got a lot of guts included in that measurement, the guts of the wall space, like the insulation, the 2x4s, that space, the thickness of the walls. That's actually what we do measure. So now when you see a house out there listed for sale and it says it's 2,300 square feet, that does not mean you have full access to walk around and utilize 2,300 square feet, because the thicknesses of the walls could be like 6 inches, maybe 12 inches thick sometimes. That is included in that 2,300. That's what this guide is all about. It says this is how we're going to do it. You measure the outside dimensions. That's what the square footage is. And then how do you handle the stairs on a 2-story? Do you include it on the one floor but not the other? Well, it turns out that you include it on both. You just pretend the stairs aren't even there and include the entire dimensions of the upstairs and the down. You know how it is under the stairs. Sometimes you can't even get all the way under the stairs. Sometimes it's a coat closet and the ceiling is going to go down. Ceiling is kind of going down, and sometimes there's a little kind of a short wall inside that closet, and you can't even access the part under the lowest point. Well, that's included in the square footage. So that's part of these guidelines as well. So we talk about how to measure that. That's Appendix D. Looks like Appendix E is, safety issues. How to stay safe. There's people out there that are just sick, right? They think because we wear nice clothes and drive a decent car, they think we carry cash around and they should try to steal from us or worse. So how can we avoid that? And then some forms and addenda. Again, these are going to be only as relevant, only as recent as whenever this book was published. And this is the most recent version, but it still might be a year or two old. I'd rather you look at the forms and addenda that I give you, but it won't be bad. You could go ahead and look at these because they're going to be close enough for our purposes. And then you've got answers to the chapter tests. After that, yep, answers are here, the answer key to all those chapter quizzes. And then there's the glossary and there's the appendix. I took some time to show you this for a reason because I want you to use it. This is a very underappreciated resource. The back of the book, these extra pieces, the extra sections, look at them, use them. Look at them now, these next couple of weeks, so that you'll know that they're there and they can be of use to you. So if we were to spread everything out on the desk, here's the content. In terms of books, you've got the syllabus on the far left. You've got the real estate license law and commission rules. And when you in fact, you could go to the real estate commission website and order this, and I think it's free. You could get them to send you if it's not free, it's like $5. It's something pretty cheap. They would send you this, like 80, 90 pages, and you could either print it out on your own or you could have them send you the actual book. If you buy the entire book from them, it's got all of those 3 PDFs included in it. It's got the license law section in the front, the commission rule section in the middle, and the comment section at the back. But we're sending you all 3 of those PDFs as separate PDFs. So there's that. And then there's, of course, your textbook. And then that 4th document is another one. This one definitely is free. The commission will send you this, and I think you could even download it for free on their website, but I have given it to you. It's called the RELINK book. The acronym is RELINK for Real Estate Licensing in North Carolina. What's that about? It's literally telling you how to get your real estate license, the steps involved. And so that's a publication available. There is some testable stuff in there. The most useful thing in that RELINK book is on pages 15 and 16. Let me show it to you. Here's the RELINK book. It's got stuff like, where do I go for the background search, for instance? And that's where you'll go. You can't just get any old background search done. You've got to go through the one they want. So you got to go to this ncreccheck.com and fill it out. Your next question is, how much does it cost? And I can't tell you because it depends on you. How many names you've had, how many places you've lived. Might take a while for it to come back because they've got to check 5 different places you've lived. And also maybe 3 different names you've had. So price and how long it takes to get it back depends on your situation. Once you submit this and pay for it, I've heard it costing like $18-20. I've also heard it costing $50-60. Again, depends on how many places they have to go check on. But you will get a copy in your email, and so will the real estate commission. You don't have to send it to the commission. It's going to go directly to them along with coming to you. They're going to file it. They're just going to leave it and not look at it until they get word that you've passed your PSI exam. Only at that point will they spend their time on you and start thinking about this background search. If, by the way, some people have more colorful, more fun histories than others. Maybe you had particularly interesting past and you're worried about something. If you're worried about something that might come up as the result of this criminal search, and you're really worried about it, there is an option to find out if these next 10, 12 weeks are even worth your time. It's called a petition for predetermination, and it's spelled out in this book somewhere or other. But basically, you can reach out to the commission, pay them $45, tell them your story, and they will tell you if it's worth your time or if it's so challenging or bad that they're just never going to give you a license because of it. It would take a lot, I think, for that to be the case. They will take your money. They'll be glad for you to be an agent and pay them the renewal fee every year, as long as it's something that you're past. Maybe it was when you were 18 and now you're not. And as long as they're convinced that it's behind you, you'd be surprised how many things people have done in the past that the commission they're like, well, as long as you tell us, but don't try to hide it, because if they find out without you telling them, that's worse. That tells them more than the thing that you actually did to begin with. The fact that you hid it is more important to them than whatever the thing was. So that's my spiel about that. Here's the part, and then after that website in this same book, PDF, it goes into the character issues and what all that means. So I'll let you read that. You should read that. They give you a couple examples of what the PSI test question is going to look like. It's just going to be this: a question. It might be a scenario, and then 4 answer choices. Multiple choice. None of these, they're just 3 examples. You notice it's not one of those Roman numeral 1 or 2. Is it both or is it neither? They don't do that anymore. They will ask you things like, which of the following are associated with the cost approach except? And you are going to have to think, wait a minute. So I need to find the thing that is not associated with the cost approach to determining value. And so sometimes that can feel tricky because you're actually looking for the thing that is not. So, but that's about as tricky as it gets. Finally, here's a really useful part of this book. It's got all of the topics broken down into how many questions will come from those topics. Look at this. Chapters 1, 14, 19, and 20. Out of all 4 of those chapters, 2 questions are going to show up on the national exam and 1 on the state section. 2 questions? That means out of these 4 chapters, only 2 of them are going to be tested. If only we knew which 2. We don't. Sorry. But, right? So if you have like an hour to study, are you going to mess with this stuff, these 4 chapters, or are you going to study brokerage, contract law, finance, where they have like double digits that you'll be tested from? It's just a way for you to prioritize your study time. Pay attention, realize, oh, some of these chapters are going to be tested more than others, right? And that can be useful later in the course. Notice that the license law and commission rules, 10 of them are on the state portion of the exam, not on the national, because this is all North Carolina specific. You following me? And then one more thing, real estate math for the mathphobes, 8 on the national, none on the state. There's 8. Does that mean there's 8 math questions? No. It means there are 8 calculation questions. You're going to have to use a calculator and crunch numbers on 8 problems. They have figured out how to test you on math without requiring calculators. And that's okay, because it means logic. So they'll give you the number of, for instance, property tax. When you have a closing on a property and you buy the property, the seller is responsible for paying the property taxes during the time they owned it within that year, from January 1 to the day of closing. Let's say the day of closing is August 1st. So if January 1 through August 1st, the seller is responsible for paying the taxes for that period of time, not the entire year's worth of the tax bill. So you've got to learn how to calculate how much the seller has to pay at closing compared to the buyer. Well, they might have taken that off the table. They might say, well, the seller's portion is $1,800. The buyer's portion is at $900. How is it going to show up on the closing statement? Is it going to be a seller debit, buyer credit, or a buyer credit, or a buyer debit, seller credit? And for which amount of money? the 1800 or the 900. That doesn't make much sense to you now, but my point is that's not a calculation question, but it's still a math question, sort of. It's more like it's a closing procedure question, but that's what that means. The stuff mentioned in this Relink book is about the PSI test, not the class final exam, although we do try to mirror it pretty closely. I think I don't remember. I frankly just don't remember how many total questions are on the class final exam, but I'll find out for you. I just can't remember. But on the PSI one, there are 120. You see, 80 of them are on the national portion, and then the state section has 40, but there's a couple of more. They call these pre-test questions. There's going to be anywhere from 5 to 10 of them on the national and 5 on the state. These are questions that are not going to count toward your grade, nor will they count toward the time you're given to take them. Which ones are they? You won't know. You'll just take the whole test, and they will have peppered them in. And what they're there for is so that they can develop questions for future tests as sort of real-world research. And what they'll do is say, well, this pretest question nobody got right. It must be too hard. Let's try to make it a little easier. Or they might say, everybody always gets this one. Clearly, it's not testing them hard enough. Let's make it a little more hard, a little harder. That's what a pretest question is. Again, it won't count against you or for you. It's just sort of there for their own purposes, and you'll never know. You might have a suspicion, but you'll never know for sure which one was a pretest question. On the PSI, on the national, you've got to pass 57 out of the 80 questions. On the state, you got to get 29 out of 40. And then it goes into how to schedule your appointment with PSI. None of this matters to you until you pass the class and until you've applied to the Real Estate Commission, because I will point this part out. Here's your timeline again. Take this class, pass this class final exam. Once we give you notification that you passed the class exam, we will tell the Real Estate Commission that you did it. We'll tell them the good news. Then once they know, you can apply to the Real Estate Commission and pay $156. So the 100 out of that is going to be to the Real Estate Commission to apply to get your license. 56 of that is going to be paid directly to PSI, the testing facility, to take the test. So that's that step. That's hilarious. Let's see here if I can show it before it goes away. Good. See my little buddy on my mouse pad? Who's got ladybugs? He just randomly showed up. I'm trying to ignore him. I saw him on the desk earlier, but then he got on my mouse pad. So we'll see if he starts making things move around. Doesn't take much to amuse me. So that's the next step. And then this tells you how you can schedule all that stuff with the PSI, the rest of this Relink book. All of that stuff, whether it's going to the testing center versus testing online. And then after that, they talk about you get 2.5. Oh, sorry. Tell me if it sounds like I'm saying stuff about something that I'm not showing you, like I just did. So the national section, they give you 2.5 hours on the PSI, and they give you 1.5 hours for the state. And that's about it. At the very back, they give you sort of a little map, a road map of each step along the way. So again, that's the Relink book that looks like that. Here's our study schedule. Again, this is in the Google Drive. It just shows you the basic topics we're going to be covering and on what dates for the most part. There's the comments section. There's the syllabus. I've made this that won't matter much till the end, but it's a constant in progress thing. I'm just kind of, it's like, I call it red flags or hot topics, things to just really review, but I'll share that with you later. You don't need that now. So let's talk about this relink again. Oh, sorry, I owe you a break. I'll see you back in 10. Welcome back. We are back. Welcome back. Okay. As a reminder, I need everybody on video during class time. Make sure you turn that video on. Good question. How long does it take to receive the book after purchasing? I'm not sure about the hard copy. I'd figure several days, and I should have a link for you by tomorrow for that. How long does it take? Or yeah, the syllabus is useful. I would say you won't. It wouldn't be a mistake to spend the time studying the license law commission rules, right? So that comments section, spend your time on that, and the syllabus. Just look at the syllabus. So you'll be good until next week if you don't get it until then. Because this first, let's see, 1, 2, and 3 are pretty basic definitional stuff. 4, we start getting into some complex material like the estates, types of ownership. So you should be okay there. All right. So that relink book, again, includes the process to obtain your license. One second. There we go. Okay. So look to that. And the whole application process, the 80 questions on national, 40 on the state. And again, the people who wrote the test, the PSI test you have to pass, are the ones who provide the relink book and the syllabus. So think about what that means. The national section on the PSI, you need to get at least a 71. On the state section, you need at least a 72.5% to pass. Again, to pass this class final exam, it's 75% or better. And then that's how much time you're given. Once you apply to take the exam, you have 180 days to pass it, meaning retesting. So you'll finish this class, take the final for this class, pass it. Then you'll apply with the Real Estate Commission. Then you'll have 180 days from when you apply with the Real Estate Commission and get approval to take the PSI. You have 180 days to take it. You might take it the first time and maybe pass the national, but not the state. And that's okay. You're in good company. A lot of people have to try a couple of times to pass the PSI. But as long as you do it within 180 days, then you don't need to apply again. Well, let me say it a different way. You do have to pay the $156 every time you try it. Like if you pass the national but not the state, you're going to have to retake the state and you're going to have to pay again to retake it. But you have 180 days to get all that done. You also have 180 days that the background search is good for. That's why you shouldn't do that today. Don't do the background. Don't order your background search yet. I'll tell you when to. It'll be somewhere around the midterm exam. If you're planning to try to take the PSI pretty soon after this final exam is over, then go ahead and order your background search somewhere around the midterm exam mark. So in about a month, you might want to order it to give them time to do it and get it complete and return back to the Real Estate Commission. Once you complete and pass this course, do you have to take the PSI right away? No. It's just that you're going to forget information, but you in fact have 3 months. You have as much as 3 months, I'm sorry, 3 years. This course, passing this course is good for 3 years. As long as you take the PSI within 3 years, this course is good for that. The educational requirement for applying is good for 3 years once you pass this course. And that is it. We talked about the levels already, so I won't go into that. Other resources. People ask me these questions. They might find something online that they found, that they saw, that they're learning from. If you do that, that's fine. There's lots of resources, YouTube channels. You might have run into a guy named Travis Everett. Travis Everett. He's got a YouTube channel with he teaches out of a different book, but it's still the same content. And I would say if him or anybody you actually see out there, doesn't matter who it is, anything you learn, if it's different than what you hear here, ask me about it. Let's make sure that we get to the bottom of it, see if it's wrong or right. I want to make sure that you're learning the right stuff. That's why I started live streaming this course, so you could listen to this in between times instead of having to rely too much on things I have no control over. So feel free to Google and YouTube things. Quizlet. Anybody ever heard of Quizlet? I'm looking at faces right now when I'm looking up here. I usually park you guys right there on another screen. And that is an online flashcard service. Somebody, I'm not sure about this book, but somebody has written flashcards for this class. So they're only as good as whoever wrote them. But you could go there to Quizlets and just do an online flashcard kind of thing. Let me see if I can give you an example. Quizlet.com. Might even have something saved. I've never made any myself, but I have found them. I've definitely found them from the last book we used, and it's going to be pretty much similar content. So if you type, let's see if it works, NC Real Estate Exam or course. Yeah, several things come up, and it's just individual people. Let's pick the one that has the most. Okay. In this case, they give you, they're saying, well, they should do it in the other order. It was really fast. An acronym, LL Beans, stands for something you need to remember. What do you need a real estate license for? Listing property, leasing property, buying, exchanging, auctions, and negotiating. Those all are real estate activities for which you would need a license to do them. And then you go to the next one, listing. Oops. Click on it, and it has just gone through and its terms, right? It's terms. It might be concepts. It might be that thing called agency I was talking about. I'm just going ridiculously fast to see what he's got here. Yeah, so far, all of these things look like real things that you need to know. So that might be useful, especially if it's on your phone, really easy and portable. But again, if you see a discrepancy, let me know so I can clear it up for you. I don't want you wasting time on something that's not accurate. So all this leads up to the next question, which is the unspoken question. How much will you make? Is it worth it? You may be halfway through this course. You're like, this isn't as easy as I thought it was going to be. Why am I doing this? The upside here is huge. There's no guarantee for one thing, but your success is a combination of things like your network. Maybe you don't know anybody. You just have to do more things to meet people. But maybe you're already coming in with a pretty good network. If you have a spouse, for instance, that's plugged into a nice job, there's people in that situation who just fly right into this business and start selling houses to the spouse's coworkers, right? Or if you're the personality type who's just a people person, or if you're not. I'm actually an introvert by nature. When we're done with class tonight, I'm going to need an hour to decompress, to just not be in front of people, to just be me and my dogs and my wife. None of us saying very much, just kind of unwinding. But my brother is the opposite. He's extrovert upside down and backwards. He would leave class and go seek out another group of people to hang out with, right? There is no right or wrong. I used to think maybe I'm in the wrong business, like in my early years. There are people who don't want to work with extroverts. They're called introverts. There are people who like and appreciate somebody that's not like type A in the face. There's nothing wrong with any of it. So there's comfort zones. So it's okay to be anything. You can make any of this work. So don't think that it's only for a certain personality type. If you don't have much of a network, or if you're new to the area, you're just going to have to go meet people in some way or other, right? And who you align yourself with. Be around people that are succeeding at what you want to be good at. There's nothing groundbreaking about that. You've all read that in a book, I'm sure, somewhere. And then how teachable do you choose to be? Are you going to learn about three things and then be the know-it-all? Or are you going to just be a sponge, always listening more than you're talking, right? Always seeing, take people to lunch, even the top producers that could afford lunch better than you can. Take them, do something for them. In exchange, maybe you learn something from them. That's how that works, right? Kind of like that whole apprentice thing, working for free. Well, get people like that to talk to you and tell you how you can jump the line, beat that learning curve, learn from their 3 years of hard experience on that one issue. If they could they can give you the solution in about 3 minutes. Here's how I handled this problem that took me forever to figure the answer out, right? And then jumping, right? Leaping before you look, right? Not the opposite. I'm a planner to a fault. I would rather procrastinate in the claiming that I'm just preparing, and what I'm really doing is being too chicken to take the first step. So in this business, it's all about learning while you're doing it. You kind of have to just go out there. And it's a quote that I didn't even know who said it. I just knew that it was real and true in life. And I looked it up and found out somebody, of course, had beaten me to it. But perfection is the enemy of progress. Don't wait to be perfect. Just get out there and do the best you can. Try not to break the laws and rules while you're at it. But you're going to learn by doing. But here's where the money comes in. You're spending what, $400 or $500 between this course and the book. Maybe if it's a retake, you're gonna have to spend another $350 to take the class over again. Maybe you have to take the PSI a time or 2 or 3 or 5. Maybe that turns into, instead of $156, it turns into $300 or $400 or $500. Maybe you're out just taking the class and taking retests, a couple $1,000. When you sell that first house, well, guess what happened in these last 5 years? The median price went up. The average price went from like $220 to double, $400,000 or $500,000. $500,000 property at 3% commission, which is half, right? The listing agent might get 3, you might get 3, maybe. It's not a standard. It's just a possibility. Maybe you get 2. But let's say you get 2. 2% of $500,000. $10,000 commission. Now you have to share that with your firm. And let's say it's a 50% split, although it probably would be better than that. $5,000? Well, that's still more than what you would spend to get the license in the first sale. When is that sale going to happen? I don't know. How many people are you willing to talk to every day? That's on you. But it's not just that $400 or $500 to take this class. One time I was teaching this class in person back in those days, and about halfway through, we were talking about some math. One of the students, she broke down in tears. I was not equipped. I'm not a counselor, but she stayed after class, and come to find out, she was 2 months behind on her rent. I think she had either quit her job or was about to quit it. She was convinced that she could take this class real quick, get the license, sell a house, and save herself and climb out of her financial hole. That was not the time for her to learn that that's probably not the way it's going to go. Because what she didn't realize, and that's why I have this here now, I didn't used to have this slide here. What she didn't know is she spent $500 to get the license. If she passes everything the first time, once you get the license, now you've got some more money to spend before you'll be able to make some money. So you might be out of pocket $2 or $3 grand between now and earnability. You're going to have to spend money on post-licensing classes, right? You've got 18 months to complete those. That's going to be about $200 each. The MLS subscription, and that's prorated access to the MLS. The total for the year is about $780. But whatever time of year you get in, you'll start paying it, right? I think it's charged per quarter, and I believe it's about $195 per quarter, something like that. Realtor dues. That one is due now. In January every year, you've got to pay realtor dues to the National Association of Realtors, the State Realtor Association, and the local board, all three, and they add up to $580. There are some agents that are choosing not to renew their licenses because they don't want to spend the $580 to renew their realtor because they never sold anything last year. Not that it's impossible to do this business, it's that they chose to not do the right things to do this business, and so they're giving up. It's not a matter of will you succeed in this business. It's a matter of when you succeed in this business. And the problem is people give up too soon. And maybe they run out of money along the way because they mishandled some things. So when you factor in all these things, that first year, you're going to be out of pocket a couple grand. Just be ready. Be saving. Be aware of that. Don't give up the life. Don't give up the day job. Fit it in. Be a part-time broker first until you can go I'd say a whole year without having to make any money. Be able to have a year's worth of expenses just to be safe. 6 months, 9 months, people say those things. But just, who needs the pressure? Don't put that pressure on yourself. Also, the job might be a source of leads sometimes. If you don't have to keep it a secret that you're doing it, that might be a good source. I know a guy who is a 911 operator. He's the guy that answers the phone when you dial 911 in Cabarrus County. And he kept that job, and he may still have it for all I know. He's killing it in real estate. He has ever since I met him 15 years ago, because he sells houses to all the paramedics, cops, and 911 related people, because he knows them all, because he's been doing that for so it's like perfect, best of both worlds. So just keep that in mind. There's more money between you and being able to start earning money. Once you get out there and start interviewing with firms, which way should you go? There's some options. You could go the single agent brokerage model. You could be your own person, your own little one-person shop, working for a broker, right? Working under a BIC for a firm, but it's your thing, make or break. You could also join a team. Teams are set up, and I'm sure you can think of a team somewhere out there that you've run across. Now I can't think of any. I'm blanking on every single one I know of. But when you're on a team, especially as a new agent, you'll probably be in the role of a buyer's agent specialist. They will not have you go on listing appointments. Those are too important. They're not going to risk that with a brand new person. The team leader, the higher ups, the really experienced ones are going to be doing that stuff, but you will be given a buyer lead, and you'll talk to that buyer, find out what they want, make sure they're pre-approved, talk to a lender, then go show them houses. They pick something at some point, maybe out of the first day you go show, maybe out of the 15th day you go show, who knows. Eventually, hopefully they'll pick something. They'll write up an offer. It'll get accepted after maybe a back and forth counter offer a couple of times. And then once you get them under contract, you'll hand the file off to a closing coordinator or a transaction coordinator, somebody else on the team. And you get a new buyer lead, and you go do it all over again. And that sounds pretty good, because they feed you the leads. You don't have to go get them. You just have to do the work. The problem is, if you want to call it a problem, your split is lower. While a brand new agent at some firms might make 80% of the commission split with the firm gets 20, you get 80, or maybe you get 70, they get 30, somewhere around there, or maybe 50-50. On a team, you're probably looking at more like a 40% split. You get 40%. But again, you're not having to spend any time or money on generating leads, maybe. They might still require you to get your own leads too. So all of those things are moving parts into this equation. You just have to factor in. A team can be good. You can learn really quickly, but you might outgrow it. because you might get tired of just doing buyers. You might get tired of only making 40 or 50%. And it's not unheard of that people leave a team after a year or so because they kind of get comfortable. They build up a reputation. People start calling them directly, and they're kind of being their own lead generation source because now they have a reputation and some Google reviews perhaps. But that's an option. You could also go new homes sales. You could be a new home sales rep. Go to a builder. I would imagine most builders want a little bit of experience, but I don't know. But that is something that's in the industry. I know a couple of agents over the years that would go back and forth. Sometimes they would work for a builder. In certain other years, they might go back to general brokerage and do their own thing. And then you could also be a licensed assistant. I've had plenty of students who already worked on a team in another capacity that doesn't require a license. You could be an unlicensed assistant, but then you get your license and now you're a licensed assistant, which means you can do some more things. You're more valuable to them. That's just a few. You could do lots of different things with the license, and we'll talk more about that. But all of these things and your choices of which to pick comes down to this. Can you get people to ask you to help them do real estate? Can you be their person? Because frankly, honesty time here, there's a lot of us. In fact, I think the count is up to about, you tell me in the chat, how many real estate agents who are actively licensed in the state of North Carolina do you think there are? How many North Carolina real estate brokers with active status licenses are there? Wild guesses welcome. Just throw something out there. More than one, I promise you. I like it. Libby goes straight to the extreme. Not quite that many, thank goodness. Holy cow, that'd be a nightmare. More than 4,500, less than 2 million, more than 20,000. Keep going up. I'll tell you this, more than 60,000. There we go. Dawn, did you mean 80 or 8,000? It's more than 80,000. It's about 82,000. But here's the good news. A lot of them don't do anything. They just have the license. They got it and they parked it and they renew it, but they never sell anything. So it's not like you have to elbow your way to the front of the line of 82,000 people. However, everybody knows one of us. And so you've got to get attention. And that's what lead generation is about, being their go-to ahead of the others. See, the thing is, the general consumer doesn't think we are any different from each other. You and I go on a listing appointment against each other. It's just going to come down to how well we did winning them over. And even though I've got 26 years on you of experience, they may not like me. And they would hire you in 2 seconds over me just because they like you better. That's this business. And so you add that with a little bit of patience, a little bit of knowing a little more than they do. It's not hard to know a little more than the consumer in this business. You don't have to know that much more than them. You just have to tell them one thing that they didn't know, and they assume you know a lot more than you actually do. And besides that, you're aligning yourself with the broker in charge and maybe some mentors and other people that you can get answers from real quick. And that client calls you and says, what about this? Here's your answer. That's a great question. Let me look into that and get back to you. I still say that. I don't know all the answers. I teach the class 1 million times. I've been in it 26 years. I don't know all the answers to everything, and I used to be embarrassed about that. But now I embrace it, and that's my standard answer. Take that and use it for yourself. You don't owe them deep dive explanation of why you don't know. Don't say, I'm brand new, I don't know. No, don't say that. Say, that's a great question. Let me look into that so I give you the best information, and I'll get right back to you. And act like you own the place. This is not in the syllabus. This is real world first day how to survive. So anyway, lead generation is what you'll learn after you get the license. Now, with that said, let's talk a little bit about actual real estate license law and rules. We're not going to chapter 1 yet. We probably will hit some of that tomorrow. But again, chapter 1 is still super basic. What is land? What is real estate? Before that, I'm going to put a toe in the water of this license law and commission rules comments material. And then we're going to come back to it in a couple of weeks, and we're going to talk about some more of it along the way, a little bit at a time, so that by the time we hit it in the syllabus, you're good. And you will have read that comment section probably half a dozen or more times on your own by then, right? Right? Okay, license law and commission rules. 10 out of the 40 questions. Our learning objectives is how we'll see it every time. Learning objectives are, what are the categories of licenses? Provisional broker, we already know that one. Non-provisional broker, you know that by logic. If there's a provisional, there's probably a non-provisional. Broker in charge, we've even talked about that. There's also something called BIC eligible to be a broker in charge, but you're not. What does that mean? Who's on the commission? How many people? How'd they get there? We talked about that some. Some general provisions, some broker in charge requirements. That's all level 1 recall. Like, what's the definition? Some level 2 stuff we'll be covering are the licensing requirements. What does it take to get one? What are the activities that you need a license to do? And then how do we handle other people's money, trust funds? And then there is even some level 3 in this section. Prohibited conduct. What are we not allowed to do? Well, one of them is lie. Not allowed to lie. Not allowed to make false promises. Not allowed to draft legal documents. Not allowed to tell people that the zoning is for residential and you don't really know whether it is or not. You could get in trouble by the Real Estate Commission and disciplined by them for things like that. We'll talk about that. That's why it's level 3. And then some general brokerage provisions. So first of all, prime, basic, testable, probably almost guaranteed, some version of this on the test. Who needs a license? Do you need a license if you're just going to sell your own house? Give me a head nod or a head shake. I'm seeing some shakes. Good job. You're right. No. You see that all the time. For sale by owner. They don't have to have a license to sell their own house. It's their own business. So you need a license to do real estate for other people, not you. So if you're doing real estate for someone else, do you need a license? No. If you're doing it for free, you don't need a license. That's hard to imagine. It's hard to think about, right? It's like, oh, why wouldn't you need a license? Don't you still need to know how to do it? Well, yeah, but the commission has to draw the line somewhere. And they're basically saying, look, it's a 3-part test. Are you doing real estate? Are you doing it for somebody else? And are you getting paid? All 3 things have to apply and be true for you to need a license. You need a license if you're doing real estate for someone else in exchange for something of value. Does it have to be cash money? No. It could be something of value. It could be a car. It could be a herd of fainting goats. You ever heard of fainting goats? You know, those little goats, and you scare them and they paralyze and they fall over. I wish I had a video. I should probably have a video of that. Who would ever do that? But that's an item of value. Or what about this item of value? Your grandma owns a duplex and she wants you to manage the one side of it, find a tenant, collect the rent. In exchange, she'll let you live in the other side for free. Is that an item of value? Yeah, free rent is worth something. So do you need a real estate license to live in one side of the duplex and rent out the other one for your grandma? Yes. You're doing real estate for someone else, doesn't matter who you're related to, for something of value. So yeah, that's a classic testable question. They will start talking to you about your best friend, your brother, your family. None of that matters. It's not you. Therefore, doing real estate for somebody that's not you for money requires a license. What if you're in the duplex for grandma, you manage the other side, you find the tenant, you collect the rent. You even had to evict somebody once. But you also pay your own rent because she's your grandma. Why are you being a freeloader? You pay the rent of your own unit. So you're not doing it for money. You're doing it because you love your grandma. Do you need a license? Do you need a license to love your grandma? No, you do not. You don't need the license in that case because you're doing real estate for someone else, but not for any money. You're paying your own rent. You're not living there rent free, right? See the difference? That's the big deal. That's the big difference. And that's how they'll get you. So be careful. How many types of licenses are there? There's one. There's one broker's license. One broker's license lets you do any of these things. You can do commercial real estate with a broker's license. There's not a commercial broker's license as a specialty, right? You could do residential. In fact, you'll probably start out doing residential. You'll sell a house somebody wants to live in before you'll probably sell a building somebody needs to operate their business out of. You'll do residential before you'll do commercial typically. By the way, anybody interested in commercial? Looking at a couple of head nods. Yeah, okay. And that's fine. You could jump right in doing commercial. I had a post-licensing student, 25-year-old lady, and she just started there. She came in that killer business suit every time to class. She was no nonsense, all business, and she never had sold a house that somebody ever lived in. She got out of school, jumped straight in with a commercial firm, and started doing that because that's what she wanted to do. And that works. You can be a provisional broker and sell commercial real estate. It's just that you're going to need to get those posts done just like you would anyway. The thing the commission says about commercial brokerage is this. It's different. Very different animal than residential. So you need to surround yourself with people to learn it from. Don't join a firm who does 90% residential and try to be their commercial person as a provisional broker. You really need to learn how to do that specialty because it's a specialized kind of real estate. But what you have in the form of your broker's license gives you the ability to do it. You just need the specialized knowledge. But you're official. Your normal provisional broker's license will let you do commercial real estate and residential. It will not let you do property management. Your provisional license will not let you do property management. But once you get rid of that provisional status, your full broker's license, non-provisional broker's license, you can do property management. See the difference? So the provisional versus non is like a phase. It's like a temporary status. But what you have is a broker's license. You're going to have a broker's license just like me. It's just that mine is non-provisional and yours is provisional until you do your 3 post classes. Let's just talk about a full broker, though. A non-provisional broker can do commercial, residential, property management, auctioneering, and tenant representation. What is auctioneering? Auctioning just means that you've been hired to help somebody sell their property and you're going to use an auction to do it. But if you get into auctioneering, you need a broker's license for the real estate, but you also need an auctioneer's license. You need 2 licenses. It's not enough just to have a real estate license. I can't do auctioning to sell my listings. I'm going to use lots of other ways to get my listings sold, but it won't be an auction. I would need to go get an auctioneer's license so that I could use auctioning to sell a house. But I don't choose to. Never done it. Tenant representation means helping renters find a place to rent. And you won't make $1 million doing it. On HGTV, who here has an HGTV PhD? Anybody an expert on HGTV? And they pop the champagne when they get the listing, and I'm cringing because I'm like, why are you celebrating? You haven't sold it yet. But, it's fun to watch a little bit. And in California and maybe even New York, they make like $5,000 to stick a renter in, get a lease signed. We don't do that here. If you get somebody hooked up to a residential rental, you might be looking at $100 or maybe 10% of the first month's rent. But it's got benefits for other reasons. To represent tenants, help renters find a place to rent, you're getting in the door with them. So maybe next year when they want to buy, you'll be their go-to person. I've even had them call me to say they want to rent, and I basically told them, well, just curious, why do you want to rent instead of buy? Well, I never thought about buying, and I got them pre-approved, and they realized, oh, I didn't think I could buy. Okay, let's buy. And they became a buyer. I never even showed them more than that first rental where I met them. So you never know where somebody's going to lead you. One license handles all of it. It's called a broker's license. And here are the categories of broker licenses. Yours that you'll first get will be a provisional broker license on inactive status. Then you pick a firm to affiliate with, and now you're a provisional broker on active status, and you can go make money. Then you take those 3 30-hour classes, post-licensing classes, and now your license changes category to a non-provisional. You're a full broker. Okay, write this next thing down. On the test, both the final and the PSI, when they're talking about a non-provisional broker, they probably aren't going to use all that word. They're just going to use the word broker. And that's a problem. Because if in your brain you're thinking about a provisional broker status and you just see the word broker, your brain might insert the word provisional and you start trying to answer the question as if they're talking about a provisional broker and you get it wrong. So on the test, look for the word broker all by itself. And if you see that, that is not a provisional broker. It's a non-provisional, meaning me, not you. I can do more stuff than you can. Just a couple more things, but the rules are a little different for me than they are for you. So watch out for that language. If you see just the word broker, it is non-provisional broker. If they're talking about a provisional broker, they will say so. They will say provisional broker. Okay. Once you become non-provisional and you have some experience, 2 years full-time experience or 4 years part-time experience, you could become a broker in charge if you want to, if somebody needs you to. So a broker in charge is the person who is in the office and overseeing everybody in the office. The broker in charge is basically I don't want to say manager because there might also be someone called the office manager, but they're the one who is in charge of all the brokers in the office, provisional and non. In fact, that broker in charge is even more in charge of the provisionals than they are the non-provisionals. We non-provisionals can kind of go do our thing. And the BIC broker in charge, they leave us alone to do it, unless we screw up. Then they might step back in and say, you might need some training again. But as long as we keep doing our thing and do it right, they're going to leave us alone and be glad to leave us alone. They just want us out there making money because their firm gets a split of whatever we make. But that provisional broker is required to be supervised by the broker in charge. There should never be a transaction that the provisional broker does that their BIC is not aware of. That's how in charge they are. That's how much of a close relationship it should be. Sometimes there's BICs out there that don't act like BICs. I've been in post classes where students at breaks come up and ask me BIC questions, and I'm like, you shouldn't even have to ask me that question. Why is your BIC not? Well, they never answer the phone. I don't feel like I can approach them. I'm like, I don't say this out loud, but I'm thinking probably time to go find a new BIC. Go to a different firm. Sometimes they take the second post from me, and they did go find a new firm. I never told them to. I don't want to go down that road, but I'll help them as best I can without stepping on any toes, and they realize on their own, I'm not getting my money's worth here. This BIC should be a little more present, and they really should be. That's what you'll be tested on the PSI. That BIC has to be very much a part of that provisional broker's business. The broker in charge has a license just like everybody else. And that license has certain requirements. You've got to maintain the license. So before we go much further, let's talk about what's required to keep your license active and current. You've got to take some education every year, and you've got to pay some money every year. So, sorry for that camera. I got to get that working. So, to maintain your current and active status requires this. The current status requires that you pay the renewal fee of $45. And you have to pay that by June 30th. You got to pay every year $45 to renew your license. You got to pay it by June 30th. In fact, you can start paying it as of May 15th all the way to June 30th, somewhere in that time frame. But that's not too important. The June 30th is what you really need to focus on. You go online, you pay online. What you also need is to take education to maintain your active status. Well, to get active, remember, you had to affiliate. You did that already. Now, to keep it active, every year you have to take continuing education. And this one's a little different. The deadline for continuing education is not June 30th. Write it down. The deadline for CE is June 10th. Testable, testable, testable. Easy to miss. The money is due by June 30th. The education is due by June 10th. Why? Because the real estate license year, the official start of the license year, so to speak, is July 1st. And so anytime you have to pay a bill, you can pay it all the way up to midnight of the night before it's due. Well, June 30th is the day before it's due. You can pay the $45 up until the very last minute. But the education is different because the real estate commission needs a little bit of time to make sure everybody gets reset, everything is credited properly. So from June 11th to June 30th, if you didn't do your CE by June 10th, you're still active here. Your license is still good. And also, there's nothing you can do to change the fact that you're going to go inactive on July 1st because you missed the June 10th deadline. So this is the testable part that people always miss. June 10th comes and goes and you forgot to do your CE. When you wake up on June 11th, is your license active or inactive? Tell me in the chat. Is your license active on June 11th still? If you didn't do your CE by June 10th, is it still active on June 11th? You're right. It is still active all the way up through the 30th. What if you didn't do the CE? Yeah, it's still active. Can you hurry up and do a CE to make up for it and avoid your license going inactive? No, nothing you can do about it. You've got like 20 days between the 11th and the 30th to sit there and worry and plan for the fact that is unavoidable that your license will be going inactive on July 1st. Nothing you can do except to go find a school to take a continuing ed class from on the week of July 1st to hurry up and get back active as soon as you can. Problem is, you probably won't get it all done within a day. Even if you find somebody giving the class on July 1st, it's probably going to take a couple of days before they'll report your completion of it and you're back active again. So that's what you need to know. If you're not active, you're inactive, and all of that depends on your education. Also, it's more than the CE, it's also for you guys the post licensing classes. So looks like this. Here we go. The money, $45 a year by June 30th. The education, which means active versus inactive, two kinds of education. Got to do your CE by June 30th. Sorry, by June 10th. I was testing you. By June 10th. But you guys also have to get your post licensing done within 18 months. If you don't do your post licensing within 18 months, your license goes inactive. So active versus inactive is about both kinds of education. You with me? The money, if you don't pay your money by June 30th, then on July 1st, your license has expired. How do you remember that? Anybody ever go uptown, use a parking meter, don't pay for enough, and you come back, you stayed too long? What does that meter say? Expired. You don't pay the money, your license expires. If you don't do the education, your license goes inactive. So you have to maintain a current and active license in order to do real estate legally. What else? Oh, the CE. Well, how much CE is required? There's 2 classes. Here's the CE. You've got to take 8 total hours. It's 4 hours of something called a general update, and it's 4 hours of an elective of your choice. An elective could be on anything. Could be about mold, could be about ethics, could be about inspection hurdles, like common inspection issues. Could be about property management or commercial real estate. It's a 4-hour class about all kinds of different things. Go shopping, go find something you want to learn about. That's what the elective can be. And then the other one is required, and it's new every year. This Gen Up is rewritten every year. There's a Gen Up for each year. But they're both 4-hour classes that add up to 8 total. So how many hours of CE do you need every year? 8 hours. Oh, here's some good news for you as brand new brokers. Let's see. This class runs through March 21st. So let's say that you are just on the ball and you end up getting, I don't even know if it's possible, if the PSI is so busy that they'll even get you tested the same month. But let's just say somehow you take and pass your PSI and get your license by April 1st. You are newly licensed, provisional. You pick a firm. You are provisional active broker. As a brand new licensee, you get to skip your first June 10th CE deadline. And why is that? Because there's nothing for you to learn. You've learned all the rules and laws in the class. You spent 75 hours learning the latest rules and laws. How much more is there to teach you this year? You don't need to take your first CE until the next second June 10th. So for you guys in this scenario, June 10th of 2023 doesn't matter to you at all. You don't have to do any CE by then. You get to skip that one. But you will have to do CE by June 10th of 24. That'll be the first year that you as new provisionals have to get your CE done by. That is active versus inactive. And with that, let's take a break and then come back for our last 45 minutes or so. I'll see you in 10.
Yo, that's 225 clean, bro. Oh, he's doing pull-ups. Hey, bro, excuse me? Hey, man, I got this push-up board challenge, bro. No one can beat it, bro. It's like really impossible. And I feel like you can, man.
What's the biggest red flag when you get into it?
Yo, that's 225 clean, bro. Oh, he's doing pull-ups. Hey, bro, excuse me? Hey, man, I got this push-up board challenge, bro. No one can beat it, bro. It's like really impossible. And I feel like you can, man.
What is it exactly?
Okay, so it's 100 push-ups, and if you do it, I'm gonna give you $200.
Shit, I'm down for $20.
Hey, bet, let's get it. Let's get it.
He can do 1,000 push-ups a day. Every 10 push-ups, he switches the handles.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. Hey, good form, bro. Good form.
Hell yeah.
Welcome back. Got another 45 minutes. We'll have that first night knocked out. Things are going okay. Hey, Tony, let me call your attention to the chat there. I have a question for you. If you could just let me know. Get a second. Okay. So we've talked about provisional brokers. We've talked about non-provisional brokers. We've talked about how the broker in charge is over the whole office full of brokers. But what if that broker in charge forgets to do their CE by June 10th? On June 11th, they're going to wake up and say some kind of creative word, their profanity of choice, and they're going to know, July 1st, my license is going to be inactive and I'm the broker in charge, which means that all 10 of my provisional brokers within the firm that I'm in charge of will also go inactive. Testable question. If the broker in charge, how do you say that? If the broker's in charge, if the license of the broker in charge goes inactive, what happens to the licenses of any provisional brokers beneath them? They go inactive too. It's a pretty big deal. If only there was a way for that broker in charge to hand the baton of leadership over to someone else. Oh, wait, there is. That broker in charge would be really smart to make sure that one of the non-provisional brokers in the firm becomes BIC eligible. If they've got a couple of non-provisional full brokers that are BIC eligible, then it's just a matter of filling out an online form with the real estate commission to say, look, I screwed up. I'm going to be inactive because of missing CE on July 1st, but I'm going to go ahead and hand over the broker in charge responsibilities and make this other person the official broker in charge until I get my mess cleaned up. and then I'm back able to be broker in charge again, maybe, and I'll get it back. So, pretty smart idea to have that safety net so that you've got a couple of BIC eligible people in the office at any given time. So to be BIC eligible, what do you need to have? You can't be provisional. You'd have to be a non-provisional full broker to be BIC eligible. You also do the exact same thing to become BIC eligible as you do to become a BIC. Here's what's required. Whether you're becoming a broker in charge because, for instance, maybe you're starting your own new firm and you're going to name your own self. Yourself is going to you're going to name yourself as the broker in charge. If that's happening, or if you just want to get your BIC eligibility, it requires a 12-hour BIC course. 12-hour BIC course. The Real Estate Commission gives it. It's recorded. It's self-directed. But I can't give it to you. I can't teach it to you. We schools, Agents Choice, or any other school, we're not allowed to give it to you. You take it directly from the Real Estate Commission. Real Estate Commission gives it. It's 12 hours. And then if you take the course, then you have an entire year to declare yourself either BIC or BIC eligible before you would have to take the course over again. It's good for a whole year. But what if you do like I did in April of 2018? I started my own firm. The Real Estate Commission said, who's going to be the BIC? And I said, I'll do it. I'll be my own BIC. So if you start a firm, or if you go to a firm that needs a broker in charge, you can go ahead and start being the broker in charge as long as you're non-provisional and you have the work experience. You can go ahead and be listed as the BIC. But if you declare yourself broker in charge, you have 120 days to take the course. Doesn't that make sense? You need to hurry up and know how to be a BIC real quick. They're not going to give you a whole year to do that. So it depends on what order of things you do it in. If you take the course first, the 12-hour course, then you have an entire year. If you go ahead and declare yourself BIC because maybe a firm needs a BIC and you're willing to do it, you could go to that firm, tell the commission, I'm now the BIC, and the commission would say, well, you better take this course within 120 days, and you're good. What else? To become BIC or BIC eligible, you need 2 years full-time or 4 years part-time experience. What does that mean? It's sort of a mixture of things. The commission is going to want you to prove to them that you really were a full-time broker for 2 years. If you had a 40-hour-a-week job at Bank of America and you sold a multi-level marketing product for 20 hours a week, they're really not probably going to think that you could give it full-time effort for 2 years. Also, they're going to want to see how many transactions you did. They're going to want to know transactions. Were you really doing real estate 40 hours a week at least for 2 years or 4 years part-time? So you're going to have to prove it to them, whatever the experience that you're claiming you have is. Once you have that experience, you can take that course and become BIC or BIC eligible. You could, in fact, be BIC eligible for your whole career and never once actually become broker in charge. Once you become BIC or BIC eligible, it's easy to stay that way. The course, by the way, is like 110, 120 bucks. But then to maintain it, it's no extra money. Here's the only thing you need to do to maintain your BIC or BIC eligibility. Remember those continuing education courses? It was a general update and an elective. To maintain your BIC status, instead of the Gen Up, you take one that's called a BIC Up, a broker in charge update. it's still 4 hours. They're both 4 hours, whichever one you're taking, and you still have to take the elective. But the BIC-UP is specific to BICs. That's hard to say fast. The BIC-UP is just for BICs, but here's the punchline there. What's the difference between the BIC-UP and the Gen-UP in terms of actual content? About 20 minutes. When they make the Gen-UP every year, the Real Estate Commission, they create this course called the Gen-UP that we teach. There's probably 5 sections, and when they want to make the BIC-UP version of that, they take about 5 or 10 minutes out of every section and create about a 20 or 30-minute section just specific to brokers in charge. So it's pretty much the same thing, not that much different. So it's basically $110, $120 to take the course, and then you just do a different continuing education update, and you're good. Probably a good idea just to do it, right? Why not? Something to learn. So that provisional broker license is a temporary status, good for only 18 months. You've got to complete education to remove your provisional status, and once you've removed it, you become a plain old broker, full broker, non-provisional broker. What are those classes? They are called 301, 302, and 303. Doesn't even matter what they are. You just need to know that they're 30 hours each for a total of 90 hours. You can do them in any order you want to. Doesn't matter about that either. You can do 302 first. If that's the very next class available and you want to just get started, take it. No problem. They're not really even related to each other, so you don't need one to do the other. And really what they are is a focused, more deep dive version of what you're learning here in this class. 301 is about agency, the relationship between you and your clients, and how to take care of them and what you owe to them in terms of responsibilities. 302 is about closings and contracts, how to write contracts. We go through an entire contract beginning to end, all 15 pages, the standard form that we use. When we go through the closing procedures, and it's out of the 3 of these, it has the most math. You have to do some calculations on what a closing attorney would do to come up with the closing disclosure, the settlement statement that everybody has to sign at the closing. You've got to be able to create one of those. So we talk you through how to do that. 303 is kind of unique. It's sort of a mix of a lot of different topics. There's some commercial real estate, there's property management, there's some case studies related, like policy, rule changes, things like that. So that's the post-licensing classes. What happens if you take longer than 18 months to do your post-licensing? You become an inactive broker. Anybody know an inactive person like that? Well, that's what you become. So as a provisional broker, here's what's important. You cannot act independently. You can't start your own firm. You've got to work under a broker in charge, be supervised by them, and they are accountable for you and for all the other provisional brokers. As a non-provisional broker, you have completed all 3 post classes. You are allowed to act independently. You don't have to report into your BIC. They don't need to know every little thing about your business. And you're held individually accountable. So if you do something wrong, your BIC is going to want to know. They're going to care. But they are not going to be called before the Real Estate Commission unless they were directly involved in the misbehavior. You're probably, even though you're non-provisional, you're probably still going to need a broker in charge. And I say probably because here's what's required. If you're a sole proprietor, which is what you'll be when you start this business, you're a sole proprietor until you create an entity. So a sole proprietor means you're operating as a human, and when you get your paycheck, it's going to be your name, whatever your human name is. If you choose to later on set up an entity and do your business in the name of that entity, like Happy Faces Real Estate LLC or LLP. LLC means limited liability company. It could be a limited liability partnership, maybe you and a buddy. It could be a C corporation or a C corporation or an S, operating as an S. Could be an S Corp, a C Corp, an LLC, an LLP. All of those are business entities. And in that case, you're going to get your commission check written to the name of that entity. The reason to form an entity and to do real estate in the name of it is some tax deductions that are made possible, and then also some liability protection. Because if you do real estate and screw it up and somebody sues you and you're operating as an entity, what they're going to be able to sue you for are the assets that are owned by your entity, not your personal stuff. So that's kind of the attractiveness of an entity. So that's the difference. When you get out of this class, get your license, and you're all ready to go, you will be a sole proprietor. And at some point along the way, you might want to go to the Secretary of State website, pay a couple $100 and start an LLC, maybe, if that's what your CPA says. That's your best option. I'm not giving tax advice. And then go to the Real Estate Commission and say, hey, I want to start my own firm in the name of this entity. And they'll say, well, if you're starting your own firm, your firm needs a firm license. At that point, you'll be paying for your human license, $45 by June 30th. You'll also be paying for your firm license renewal every year, too, by June 30th. So you'll be having two $45 renewals. You don't have to do extra education. The education component is good enough that you, the human, are involved, because your firm can't sit there and learn anything, right? The firm entity, I should say. You're learning it on its behalf. But if you're getting paid through your firm is doing real estate for other people for money, therefore it needs its own license. That's the logic there. Okay, when you start your own firm, you have to designate a broker in charge. What if you just operate as a sole proprietor and don't start your own firm? If you're a sole proprietor, this last bullet point, likely need a BIC, you're going to need a broker in charge if you do the three following things. If you have a trust account where you keep other people's money, your client's earnest money, for instance. If you have licensees under you, and you have brokers under you, you need a BIC to do that. Or if you promote your business in any way, then you need a broker in charge over you. Well, that's a pretty broad description. Let's think about what it means to promote your business in any way. What's promotion? Give me a couple of examples in the chat as to promotion. And if you haven't said something or participated in the chat, here's your chance in these last half hour or so. I need everybody to participate to some degree every class. Certainly, good one, running ads. Yep, running ads is promotion. There it is. Brian says business cards. That's kind of one that we overlook. It's like, oh, so if I have a card made and handed out, that's promoting. Yeah. Therefore, you need a BIC. So, for instance, maybe somebody tries to retire in this business and they say, well, I'm just going to go home and mind my own business and just not going to start a firm. I'm just going to be a sole proprietor on my own. I don't need a BIC. And that's fine as long as they don't print business cards, as long as they don't have agents under them or a trust account. But what if somebody calls them and says, hey, I remember you from 30 years ago. You sold me a house. Are you still doing real estate? You would say, well, not really. And they would say, well, do you know a good agent you could refer to me? And you could say, yes, I do. And you could connect them with another agent and ask that agent to pay you a referral fee, and that would be okay. By the way, you have to have a real estate license in order to get paid referral fees, which is a good enough reason to go through this process, because that's the most underappreciated benefit of having the license. In fact, I taught a CE class to a gentleman who was in his second phase, right after his retirement from his back when people worked for 30 years at the same place. He did that. He was an older guy and got his real estate license. It had been like 3 years since he got his license. He was active. He was taking CE from me, and he had never shown a house, and he had never listed a house. He had made a lot of money, I think even 6 figures a year, make on referrals. Because what he did do was take a chunk of money that he had available, like 25, 30 grand at the time. This was probably 4 or 5 years ago. Probably don't need to do it the way he did it anymore. You could accomplish it other ways. But what he did was he ran TV and radio ads of all things. What the heck is that? And he got the phone ringing and created these leads coming in. And he would just hand those leads out in exchange for referral fees to other agents in his firm, in his office. It wasn't even his firm. He was just a regular agent. And all he ever did was refer out business and made a bunch of money doing it. And that's okay. So in order to refer a client to another agent, and then they work with that person and get it closed, and then they send you a referral fee, a portion of their commission, you need a license. Well, what if this original example, this retiree who goes home and says, I don't really want to do this anymore, but if they call me and need a referral, I'll hook them up and I can make money that way. That's about the only way a person without a broker in charge could still make money in this business. But at the minute that she were to maybe go make phone calls and say, hey, if anybody needs, or make a Facebook post, anybody need a referral, I'm available. She just violated the rule, right? She needs a BIC to do that. You see what the nuance is there? So those are the three ways that you would still need a BIC. She basically needs to just sit home and wait and hope somebody calls her. She can't be proactive. They have to call her, maybe because she's been doing it for so long that people are still checking with her and asking her for advice. That broker in charge supervises provisionals, has some administrative and supervisory duties for the rest of us too. Even though they don't need to know everything about every one of our transactions when we are a non-provisional broker, they are still responsible for the trust account if there is one, as well as any advertising in the firm. Agents get in trouble with advertising more than they should. It's easy to break the rules concerning advertising, particularly fair housing laws, because we get so excited trying to describe that property in such a perfect way that we find a buyer or a bunch of buyers that we get carried away with our language. And if we were to say beautiful bungalow within walking distance of the Jewish Community Center in Uptown Charlotte, then we're getting in trouble because we mentioned a religion. Can't call it the Jewish Community Center, can't refer to the house as being near it. You could say just community center. In fact, the YMCA stands for Young Men's Christian Association. You got to leave out the religion stuff. You got to leave out all 7 of the federally protected class things. Those other ones are probably a little more blatant. It's probably not hard to avoid doing that because it's like pretty clear that you don't need to imply in any way that only people from a certain group are allowed to buy it or certain people from certain groups are not allowed to buy it. Pretty clear cut when it comes to race, color, national origin. But when disability, that's a very commonly mishandled one. Religion. The categories are familial status. That's one that you'll be learning in unit. Well, now I can't remember the unit. I'm thinking of the other book. The unit on fair housing. Familial status means what? What do I mean by familial status? You can't discriminate against someone based on their familial status. Familial, like family. Family status. What does that mean? Any guesses? You have no reason to know it. I'm just seeing if you know it. Everybody give me a guess. Good guesses. Good guesses, by the way. Single, married. It's not single. It's not married. Well, see, it's kind of single. Yeah, single parent. Yeah, I wasn't thinking about the parent. You nailed it. It's parent. It's underage kid. Familial status. You can't discriminate against somebody with kids. So like in the rental sector, if a landlord said this apartment is perfect for somebody with no kids, boom, violation. They're trying to get people without kids, and you can't discriminate against people with kids. They can't say one occupant only because that would forfeit anybody that had kid. It's not married. It's not who's married to who. It's not a gender, same-sex thing. It's nothing like that. It's just underage kid. So familial status, race, sex, which encompasses everything, all the most recent things. It started out male, female, but now it includes sexual orientation, gender identity, no discrimination. And you know what, guys? Real estate is real estate. Money is green. When I explain this to people, which I do every time because we have to explain it as part of our agency disclosure, I say, look, this basically says we don't care what anybody looks like, believes in, where they came from. We're going to treat everybody fairly. Everybody should have a fair shot at real estate. Therefore, that's what fair housing laws are about. Sex, disability, no discrimination against people with disabilities, and then color, religion, and national origin. We'll get into a whole chapter about all that stuff. And the broker in charge has to make sure that when we write ads and run ads and post things to Facebook, Instagram, whatever, that we don't screw that up. We can mess up the ad in more than just fair housing, by the way. We could also run an ad that is what they call a blind ad. That's another real estate comment section thing you'll see. A blind ad would be when we don't admit that we're a broker. You probably understand this as a consumer. If you were calling around about buying anything, wouldn't you rather just buy it from the owner without some pesky salesperson getting in the way? And so if you are that salesperson, not a pesky one, you're not going to be that one, but if you are a salesperson trying to sell a property, wouldn't it be more effective to make the phone ring if you didn't have to admit that you're the salesperson? You could act like and pretend you're the owner. I bet more people would call you, but that's not allowed. You've got to admit you're a broker, and if you don't, in the ad, it's called a blind ad. So as a provisional broker, you have to put some certain things in the ad. You got to say, hey, this is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath bungalow, uptown Charlotte, and it's got this and that and the other. Call me, broker with 123 real estate firm, and you have to include the firm's phone number. As a provisional broker, you have to include the phone number of the firm, the general number. You can still put your mobile number, and you should, but you got to include the firm number because think about it. Remember, you're a provisional broker. The broker in charge is responsible for you. You're probably at least a little more likely to maybe even just accidentally harm the public because you're inexperienced. Therefore, the public needs to have a way to contact your supervisor in the form of your broker in charge. If you're non-provisional, you don't need to put the firm phone number. You can just include yours by itself. But you still have to admit that you're a broker and that you're with this such and such firm. Otherwise, it's a blind ad. And so, again, that's the BIC's job. Make sure that we know what the advertising rules are, that we're trained up on them, and that we follow them. Some BICs even say, you've got to run everything by me. It's super easy to be standing in the grocery store line, pull out your phone as a real estate broker, crank out a real quick ad or a promotion or something, and post it. But sometimes that BIC might say, don't be doing that until you at least let me look at it real quick. Some probably care more than others. We know the rest of this. You already just learned it. You must have a full-time experience for 2 years or part-time for 4, and then complete the course. All right, there's another kind of broker's license. And then that's about it. Here it is. Think about it this way. If you operated a business in another state and you wanted to explore your options to come to North Carolina and expand your business, let's just say you're selling office furniture and you want to expand into North Carolina, do you want to, maybe you've got several locations, for instance, and such a big enough business that you have a real estate department. You have a real estate department with your own people. You're probably going to send your real estate person to North Carolina to scout out locations and try to do the business of commercial brokerage on your behalf. You're not going to maybe seek out a North Carolina broker. You've got one on your staff, not a North Carolina one, but a broker on your staff to do commercial. Here's how that commercial broker can go around needing a broker's license for North Carolina. This is basically a way for a person without a North Carolina license to do real estate in North Carolina. It's called a limited non-resident commercial broker's license. They've got to only be using it for commercial real estate. This doesn't work for residential at all. So it's got to be commercial. They cannot be a resident of North Carolina. They're coming here from another state just for this purpose of commercial real estate. Limited responsibilities. And it's an out-of-state licensee who's got a license back where they came from, coming here in North Carolina just to do this commercial transaction on a limited basis, like this one transaction. They need to have a cooperation agreement with a broker here in North Carolina. That makes it so that they have a resource of the laws and rules. That's to help them not break the laws and rules. Brokerage cooperation agreement with a North Carolina broker to make sure somebody's guiding them and say, oh no, we can't do it that way here. And that person is also probably going to be, maybe they have a trust account that person can utilize, and they supervise their activities. Good question. Somebody's asking, with our North Carolina license, is there like reciprocity to other states? And there's not. There's probably, you might have an easier route to get a license in other states, but it used to be like North and South Carolina. I could get a South Carolina license by just paying some money, but now I have to actually do some stuff to get the license education-wise. And then we talked about firms a little bit. You have to have a firm license if you set up an entity. If you set up a business entity like an LLC, LLP, S Corp, or C Corporation, that entity has to have its own real estate license. Because that entity is the one in whose name you're going to be doing the business. Therefore, you need a license. When you're doing real estate in the name of something, whether it's helping somebody buy or sell or lease stuff, or doing the auctions, or even making referral fees for compensation. Now, there's plenty of stuff in this business that do not require licenses. So think about this. As you get busier, you might want to hire an assistant. You're not making any money making a flyer. That's like $10, $20 an hour business. If you take all the hours it takes to do a typical transaction and use it to divide the money that you made doing the transaction, you're probably going to see it trending toward $100 an hour, at least $50, $75, $100, $200 an hour. Everyone is different. Sometimes you get lucky, takes less and less time. Sometimes it takes more time and you almost don't make any money, kind of when you're looking at it in that way. But when you look at it in that light and you get to a certain level of production, you're costing yourself money if you're doing $20 an hour work, aren't you? So what are these things that you could possibly have someone else without a license do for you? Here they are. They're also in the comments section of the license law and commission rules. So the activities that do not require a license include putting the information into the multiple listing service. So when you list a house, you don't have to be the one to plug in the square feet, the bedrooms, the baths, the description into the MLS database. You could hire somebody to do that, and they don't need a license to do it, but you're still responsible for making sure it's done right. So I would say have them enter it in, save it as inactive listing, and then you go back and double check, make sure all the facts are correct, and then hit it, make it go active. They could also act as a courier, go round up documents, drive them around. They could put boxes on the property, those key lock boxes, and signs in the yard. They could provide basic information to people who call in. So if someone calls and says, hey, what's the price on your listing at 123 ABC Street? Your unlicensed assistant could say it is $350,000. Well, how many bedrooms? It's 4 bedrooms. Oh, how many square feet? It's 2347. Well, would they take 330? Wait a minute. I'm only an unlicensed assistant. I can't answer that. I need to let you speak to my broker boss, because that's not something an unlicensed person could talk about. The minute the person takes it beyond the information sheet, they're unqualified. You follow me? They can just provide the basic information. They can also schedule appointments for showings as well as repair people. Like if the roof needs to be fixed, they could schedule that, order that, and schedule it. They can also, notice this third one from the bottom, they can prepare pre-printed forms, but for whom? Who can they prepare these pre-printed forms for? It says licensee. That's what you're going to be when you get a license, the broker. They can't prepare the pre-printed form for a client. That means they can't fill in the blanks of an offer to purchase or a listing agreement and then present it to the client and explain it. That's not what they're allowed to do at all. No. What they can do is fill in those blanks at the direction of the broker boss and then give it to the broker boss to explain it. They are the one who explains it to the client. You follow me? For licensees is the important part. That's very testable. I've seen this show up on practice exams too. Prepare pre-printed forms. You can fill in the blanks as an unlicensed person as long as your broker gets to see it before they show it to the client. Now, these last two are about rentals, property management. Property management is a bit of a different animal than sales when you're selling something versus when you're just renting it out. So, as an unlicensed assistant or anybody who is unlicensed, you cannot show a property for sale. I need to write that one in here. You can provide the basic information like on the telephone or email or a text, but you can't actually show it. An unlicensed person can't show property and they can't hold open houses by themselves. You with me? Write that one down. But they are allowed to show rental properties. They can't show houses for sale, but they can show houses for rent. Unlicensed people are allowed to show rental properties as long as it's for their broker boss, who is the property manager. You with me? Why is that? Because when you're showing houses for rent or property for rent, for one thing, it's probably a less likelihood that the person's even going to try to haggle. Most of the time, people just say, "What's the rent here? $2,500. Okay." But when you're showing something for sale, how much are they asking? $400. Would they take $390? A little more likely that they're going to try to maybe talk about bargaining, negotiating, and an unlicensed person's not allowed to do that. But showing rental properties for their employer is allowed for an unlicensed person. What if it said showing houses for sale for their broker boss? Then no, not allowed for an unlicensed person. Big difference and big testable item. Also, an unlicensed person can execute a pre-printed lease for an employer. Oh my goodness, there's a lot of elements here. There's 3 big words here. Execute. That means interact with the client and sign it on behalf of your boss. Execute. Make it active. Make it relevant. So that's a big deal. You can sign a lease as long as it's a pre-printed lease and as long as it's for your broker, boss, employer, who is the property manager. So in property management, there are more exemptions for unlicensed people to be able to do real estate, which ordinarily would require a license, right? You follow me? They can show rental properties and they can execute leases as long as they are a W-2 employee for their property manager boss. Okay. Who makes up the Real Estate Commission Board? It's 9 total members. They serve 3-year terms. That's a good question. Brian says, if you sell your own property as a licensed broker, can you charge fees? Meaning like, to whom? Selling your own property. If you're selling your own property, as a seller, you're typically paying the commission. So I guess I need more clarification of your question. And yes, I'm sorry, I just late seeing your question, your other question there, Dion. what you're going to have here is a North Carolina license. So yeah, you'll be licensed only for North Carolina. If you sell your own property as a licensed broker, can you charge fees to the buyer? You don't really do that anyway. So if you're a licensed broker, a seller is hiring you to list the property, and you as the seller are going to pay your listing broker a commission, and that listing broker is going to share that commission with the buyer's agent. So I guess I'm not sure what fees you might be talking about. So if you have more, just shoot it in there. I'll see it in a little bit. Who's on the commission? 9 people. They serve 3-year terms, 3-year rotating terms. So there will never be an entire body of 9 commissioners, fresh, brand new, all at the same time. 7 are appointed by the governor, who's in charge at the moment. 1 is by the North Carolina Speaker of the House. The other is by the Senate President Pro Tem. And then here's the other part that's important. At least 3 of the real estate commissioners, 3 out of the 9, must be licensees. They must be licensed brokers. And that makes sense. You kind of want people who have a vested interest kind of running the show. So 3 out of the 9. So there could be 3 with licenses and 6 without. I doubt that will probably be the case usually. I think there's probably usually going to be more with licenses than without. But they could be. And then at least 2 out of the 9 are not allowed to be in real estate at all. Because the idea is, let's make it fair. Let's be sure we get equal representation, even from people that don't have any vested interest in real estate business as an income, right? So you need to know this one. What's the point of this North Carolina Real Estate Commission? They do lots of different things. Their overarching priority is to protect the public from us. Make sure that we don't do anything to harm the consumer. Educate licensees as well, making sure that we are educated on the laws and rules and that we don't take advantage of the public. So that includes giving out the licenses, overseeing the education, making sure that what we teach is what they want us to teach via the syllabus, right? Registering timeshares. Anybody ever sat through a timeshare sales pitch? Who has sat through a timeshare? Did you get the thing? Was the thing that you sat there for worth it? Did you get a free night stay or a toaster or a gift card? They kind of are experts at salesmanship, aren't they? Well, in North Carolina, that timeshare salesperson has to have a real estate license. I don't think that's the case in Florida and Nevada and some other places. The Real Estate Commission also sets up education for both prospective, that's you, and current, that's you when you pass, licensees. They also investigate complaints against licensees, and they protect the public by disciplining. So let me show you something, and then we'll call it. But real quick here, this is interesting. Every month, the Real Estate Commission puts out an update. There we go. And in that update is the most recent disciplinary action. So here's what it looks like. These agents did something that the commission did not agree with, and the commission disciplined them. The 4 possible ways the Real Estate Commission could discipline a broker or a licensee is reprimand them, which is basically, hey, don't do that. Note in the file, slap on the wrist. Or it could be a censure, which is kind of the same thing, but you'd get the reprimand first. Or it could be a suspension, or it could be a revocation. Revoking the license means we're taking the license back. You no longer can do this anymore. You did something bad enough that you're excused forever. So this first person was revoked. Revoked the license as of November 9th. He failed to provide and review basically a how to work with agents disclosure. We'll talk about that. With prospective buyers and sellers, failed to get written listing agreements. That's a big one. You can't list a property unless you have it in writing that you're allowed to do so. This is probably the biggest one that really got him. Forged client signatures on agency disclosure, agency agreements, and agency termination. Failed to provide the broker in charge copies of the agency stuff, and failed to report a criminal conviction within 60 days of judgment. That's another thing that's testable, by the way. If you're convicted of a crime, if you're convicted, you have to tell the real estate commission within 60 days. If you change your name or address, you have to tell the real estate commission within 30 days. 10 days. 10 days for name and address, 60 days for conviction. This next person was suspended. You see suspensions a lot more. What'd they do? Suspended for a period of 12 months, but then they stayed the suspension, which means she still gets to do real estate, but she's suspended as long as she does some other stuff they're going to ask her to do. Probably take a course to get better at whatever she messed up on. So she's going to still get to do it, but if she doesn't take that course, if that's what it is, she's then going to have to sit out for 12 months. So she was a property manager. She had a trust account, and she commingled funds. She mixed the money up of other people, the clients, with her own operating expenses, maintained records, had excess overages, and her property management firm license expired. She just got sloppy. And then this person was reprimanded. That's the lightest of all. She participated in a social media exam study group. Look at this one, guys. This one is very applicable to you. Be careful. When you get out of that PSI exam, don't call your buddy and talk about the test questions. The commission gets really testy about it to the point where they reprimanded about 6 people in a row here. Look at this. Reprimanded this person. Participated in a group, actively shared confidential exam information, or encouraged others to gather exam information. Same deal. So this was the entire study group. This person and this 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10 people. They basically shared notes and disclosed test questions. The commission is ticked. They are highly protective of their test questions. I think they were really making an example here because, yeah, that's a big, big no-no. Here's another permanent revocation. This one, let's see, didn't issue a refund. A lot of money stuff is what'll get you revoked. Suspension, let's see, acted as a BIC, disallowed refunds, failed to comply with the Vacation Rental Act. Here's another suspension for 9 months, stayed the suspension. This one is about disclosure. Indicated the roof was 11 years old, mistakenly checked a drop-down box talking about it had a warranty, and I guess it really didn't. So that's what it looks like. Public shaming is part of your punishment. If you get disciplined, it's going to show up. And this is a Googleable document. If somebody plugs your name into a Google search and you showed up in this disciplinary action bulletin, it could show up. I don't know what page, but it could show up. Finally, and then we'll call it a night. Just take a look here. Total licensees, people with real estate licenses, 124,000 in the state, but not all of them are people. 16,000 of them are firms, right? Entities. 275 of them are those weird limited non-resident commercial broker status folks. And then out of the remaining 108,000, about 77,000 are active full brokers, and then another 57,000 are active provisional brokers. Then there's some inactive people that either didn't take post or didn't take CE. And then here's about 5,600 that have a BIC eligible status, but they aren't actually the BICs. So this bulletin kind of shows all that good stuff, and we get it every month. So we can kind of stay on top of the business. And with that, we are done for the evening. Put your name in the chat for me before you leave. I welcome your questions if you want to stay behind and ask me anything. Otherwise, I'll see you tomorrow night. And we will continue some more license law commission rule, and we'll get on into chapter 1. Appreciate you guys. Take care. You're welcome.